Hi, today once again we're talking about 380 ACP ammunition selection. Now, as we've seen previously, there's a lot of choices, some of which are good and some of which are not. And some can be affected positively or negatively by the barrel length of the handgun in question. Now today I've got my Smith & Wesson Bodyguard with its 2 3/4 inch barrel, and I also have a Rock Island Arms Baby Rock with a 3 3/4 inch barrel. So let's see to what degree, positively or negatively, that 1 inch more barrel can affect a couple of different types of 380 ammo. Now please bear with the redundancy, but for those who haven't seen it, this is the meat target. It's leather jacket skin, followed by pork chop pectorals, pork ribs, a watermelon lung tissue, more pork ribs on the back, 4 layers of t-shirt on the front, 4 layers on the back, and the whole thing followed by the new and improved high-tech fleece bullet stop. And for ammunition, I'm going to start with the really basic entry-level ammo, which is Winchester White Box 380 ACP 95 grain jacketed hollow point. And I'll start with the Smith & Wesson Bodyguard with its 2 3/4 inch barrel, and I'll shoot from 7 yards. Well, the damage to our pork chop pectoral is really unimpressive. As far as our ribs on the front, where bullets hit ribs, broke them. The damage to our watermelon lung tissue looks mediocre, but when you consider that I shot it 5 times, then this damage is minimal. The ribs on the back, again, minimal damage. Where a bullet hit a rib, broke it. And all 5 of the projectiles were stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target. But let's take a close-up look at these projectiles. And here's all 5 of our Winchester White Box projectiles, and you can see that the expansion is minimal. In previous demonstrations with calibers like 45 ACP and 9x19, I've gotten good results out of the Winchester White Box hollow points. But in 380 ACP, they appear to be a dismal failure. But before we count them out completely, let's try that again with our Rock Island Arms pistol with 1 inch more of barrel and see if that makes any difference. Well, the holes in our pork chop pectoral seem a little bigger, the damage to the watermelon lung tissue is quite a bit more, and the holes in the ribs on the back are a little bigger. Let's take a close-up look at these bullets. Now with one bullet we got just a little bit of expansion, but with the other 3 the expansion is very good. So it would appear that adding 1 inch to your barrel makes a great deal of difference. If you've seen very much of my work, you know that I'm not a fan of the hyper ammunitions. However, there are some exceptions to that, one such exception being caliber 380 ACP. What we see with the Winchester White Box ammunition is it will work pretty well in some guns, but not very well at all in others. So sometimes I'll resort to a hyper ammunition, in this case, Hornady Critical Defense, which is a 380 ACP 90 grain FTX projectile, like a ballistic tip. And although I do consider this hyper ammunition, it's probably down there pretty close to the bottom of the hyper scale. So I'll shoot from 7 yards with my Smith & Wesson Bodyguard, and let's see how we do with this. Well, pretty impressive holes in the ribs on the front of the target, where the bullets hit ribs, broke them. Fairly good damage to our watermelon lung tissue. The ribs on the back of the target, all 4 bullets hit these ribs and all 4 went through, but they had so little energy left that they just put a hole through there. It did very little damage. And of course they were all stopped by the t-shirt on the back of the target. Now let me show you a close-up of what these rounds look like. And here's our FTX projectiles, and we see one has marginal expansion, but as far as the other 3, the expansion is excellent. Considering the degree of expansion and penetration we saw when we put the critical defense ammunition into a pistol with a 2 3/4 inch barrel, when we use a 3 3/4 inch barrel, are we going to increase our velocity to the point that we get so much expansion that we get insufficient penetration? Let's find out. And we can see with our longer barrel, we definitely got greater expansion out of our critical defense FTX projectiles. Shooting our critical defense ammunition through the longer barreled handgun, the first thing I notice is very impressive holes in the ribs on the front of the target. Our watermelon lung tissue is annihilated. But the ribs on the back of the target, you'll remember in the shorter barreled gun, all of the projectiles went completely through, just with very little power. Now we're seeing enough expansion that a couple of the bullets were just stuck in the ribs, and a couple weren't even stuck, they were just laying against the ribs. So although we see more damage to the front end of the target, it did cost us some penetration. Some people would interpret that as a positive, in that if your projectiles fail to completely penetrate the intended target, it reduces the danger of collateral damage. Some people would interpret that as a negative, in that if this target were very much bigger, our penetration would certainly have been insufficient. But one thing we can take away from this, and everything else we've seen today and in previous demonstrations, is that in caliber 380 ACP, the performance of your projectiles can be profoundly affected, positively or negatively, by the length of the barrel of your handgun. Now, we're far from done with 380 ACP demonstrations. We'll revisit this again several times. And for those of you who've asked about the Extreme Defender ammunition, it's in the works. Also, the side note of, you saw the Rock Island Arms pistol I was using today. A lot of people have asked about Rock Island Arms, and I don't have a lot of experience with them. The one I was using today I just purchased with donations to the Patreon account. Thank you, everybody. And I've only put about 50 rounds through it, but I have to say, so far, I have not been impressed with the results. I'll put a few hundred more rounds through it and then have a more definite analysis of it. But until then, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching 380 ACP Ammunition Part 3.